Professor Rudra Pratap from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is the Deputy Director at the Indian Institute of Science, which is the premier research institute in India with respect to research. He is also a professor at the Center for Nanoscience and Engineering, which is a fairly large center which actually initiated and established at IISc. He specializes in NEMS and NEMS design, and he will, I'm sure, tell us, for the benefit of some of those who do not, what that means. And apart from MEMS and NEMS, his research interests include mechanobiology, sensor technology, and computational mechanics. He holds a PhD degree from Cornell, a BTech from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and is a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering and the Indian National Academy of Science.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks to Thomas and Amit for inviting me here. And thank you for coming to this talk. What I want to talk to you about is something that I have been pursuing for the last 10 years now. I work in micro and nanoscale devices, and once I started looking at nature, it occurred to me that there is tons of engineering there that we can learn from at that scale, and that has been the motivation. So this is what I want to talk to you about. But before I go on, let me just tell you a little bit about Indian Institute of Science, from where I come. This institute is pretty old. It was Tata, who was industrialist, very big industrialist. The Tatas are an industrial house who make lots of things in India, and now they also make Jaguar and Land Rover. So Tata's, the patriarch of Tata, J. Tata, teamed up with a spiritual leader, actually. A spiritual leader gave him all the encouragement to establish a research institution, and then Maharaja of that state, Mysore, gave the land, and that's how this institute came into existence. So we are now more than 100 years old, and have been in existence, doing very well in terms of mostly graduate school. It's mostly a graduate school in science and engineering. We have an extremely small undergraduate program, 120 students per year in sciences, that's what we take. But if you look at the PhD students, it's roughly 2,800 PhD students. And remember that this is only in science and engineering. So it's a pretty big number. Faculty members are about 450 faculty members. So with that kind of strength, we run our master's, PhD, and bachelor's programs. It is rated #1 institution in the country, and if you take out things like internationalization of students and faculty, then we rate very high even on QS and PhD rankings. It turns out that in terms of citations per faculty, we rank #6 in the world. This is the Center for Nanoscience and Engineering, where I have been working, and I established that center. It has a big, huge clean room that is the center of work, and this attracts a lot of students. We have 150 PhD students just in the center alone, and it also works on an outreach program that attracts 700 universities from the country to work here. So this is a place where it's not just for fabrication, but also for characterization. We have an incredibly good facility that has mechanical, optical, electrical, material, all characterization under one roof. It's extremely hard to find, because the investments required are huge. So we spent something like $50 to $70 million to establish this place, and now it is doing a wonderful job for, not just for us, but for the whole country. So let me come back now to the topic, that research topic I want to talk to you about. I do make distinction between biomimetics and bio-inspired engineering, and I'll talk to to you about that. World of insects and insect design, which is what I'm after. I'm looking at the engineering design of insects. What God's engineering is, or nature's engineering is, that's of interest to me. In particular, I look for design templates and scaling. Look, we have been flying aeroplanes and whatever, but we still have hard time making tiny things fly. But in nature, that all scales exist. There are big birds, there are mosquitoes, there are tiny creatures, they all fly. And if you look at the mechanics of those things, it's vastly different. And yet, there is a design template that nature is able to use. So what is it? That kind of stuff interests me enormously. Micro and nano sensors. So in that regard, I'll give you two examples, where we have studied deeply. Crickets and their bioacoustics. Crickets, make so much of loud sound. How does that happen? What is the engineering behind it? And flies and their inertial navigation. The gyroscopes that flies use versus the gyroscopes that we use. So I'll talk about that. So biomimetics, when we think about biomimetics, we just try to copy the functionality mostly. You see a function in nature and you want to mimic that. That's what biomimetics is about. But if you look at natural systems, they have material, structure, and function. In all of those, you find that they're so different from what we do, what man-made things are like. Whether it's about the material and the processing of the material, it's all atoms of approach, molecular engineering that nature does. Structures, what kind of structures? In nature you hardly ever find any rectangular or square or sharp corner thing. And similarly, function, there is hardly anything which has only one function in nature. Most things are multifunctional. So when I talk about bio-inspired engineering, I'm talking about looking at what is the principle of operation that nature is using. Okay, what is the design template, and how does nature sort of figure out that, hey, these are the parameters, design parameters, out of a basket of them, that if you vary a little bit, this is the most sensitive design parameter, that if you vary a little bit, you create different species. You create different, insects or functionalities. So what are the rules of scaling? How does it scale over several species and so forth and so on? So these are the kinds of things that interest me enormously, and I look at these. Nature's design is based on all organic materials. Why did it go off? Let's see. No, it's on here.
I guess, is that a large slide?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we are looking at, when you look at natural systems, you're looking at biology, you're looking at form, function, evolution. These are things that biologists look at. Form, function, evolution. It keeps going off.
Let's just
I don't get it. Why should it be? Okay.
let me see if you have some support.
So you have biologists looking at these things, but what engineers mostly want to look at is design. And that's what my central interest as an engineer is too, as an engineering professor is too, that what is in the design. Biosystems, when you look at science of it, we know quite a bit because biologists have been working on these things for a long time. Technology is mostly molecular, and engineering of natural systems is just too complex, but extremely elegant. When you look at nature's engineering, it's too elegant. And I'll show you examples that I can never get enough of it. Anyway, so new opportunities are at probing biosystems at small length scales. again, I'm repeating that it's not that, biologists are probed them at molecular levels, up to molecular levels, but I'm talking about the design, probing for design. So at small scales, if you want to probe, and nanotechnology is here, if you put the two together, bio-inspired engineering can go places. Okay? And that's the central thesis of my talk here today. So let me give you an example. I got interested in this area. You all have heard crickets sing, right? And you know that they make heck of a loud sound, right? Now this is a tiny creature, and yet the sound it makes, you can see that there is no battery pack, nothing there, it's just simple wing going like this, and you hear this really enormously loud sound. So it so turned out that Rohini, who is an ecologist, a professor at my institute, a colleague, she came and gave a talk in mechanical engineering in 2010. And that's the first time I learned that crickets don't have vocal cords. They're making this sound not from their mouths or something, but just from these wings. And I was amazed. So she told us what ecologists know, what they have measured, that how these sounds are produced, and it was all mechanical. Now, I was in mechanical engineering, and I said, gosh, if I can't figure this out, who can? So I got after this with my students, and I said, let's build a model. Let's see how crickets are able to do this clever thing, produce so much of sound.
If you just press the mouse area up in the laptop, I don't know, the gentleman is not, light up?
I think there is a problem.
It's loose.
Probably, yeah. Just no, that's good. If it comes up over there. To the cable. Just leave. We'll see. So I started working with first with master students to see if I can make some headway, before taking it on with a PhD student. But then a bright PhD student, this guy arrived, and I was trying to scare him away, because I didn't have time at that point. I was setting up a large center. I didn't want to take more PhD students. I already had some 9 or 10 PhD students. And this guy kept coming back to my office and saying that, look, I came here to work with you. I said, that's very flattering indeed. Yet, I can't produce time, so I can't work with you. And the kid kept coming back. So one day I thought that, let me scare him away. I said, the only subject I'm interested in is how crickets sing. Okay? So I thought this will scare away this guy. He comes back the next day and he says, actually, I find that very interesting. I'm willing to work on it. And, the rest is history. We worked on it. We had so much of fun working on this, and that's what I'm going to show to you. And then from there, whatever we learned, we transported into engineering and into a MEM speaker. And this is my current graduate student, PhD student, who has been working on that, and I'll share her results as well. All this sponsorship, I did not write any grant proposal for this. Thanks to Government of India, we can still do things like this, that we can do a whole, PhD worth of work without having a grant. So this is a fascinating sound production mechanism that crickets use. Now, just to put in perspective, look at, speakers that we use, general computer speakers. Generally, at full volume, you will get 95 dB at 10 centimeters, speakers. Human voice, 76 dB at 10 centimeters, right? I'm probably at 78. I speak a little louder, but still, it's that kind of decibel level. Buzzers, 70 dB. looking at crickets, 80 dB sound. So obviously you wonder, right, that where is this huge sound coming from? So here is our friend. You can see the wings going back and forth, and we are recording the sound. We are looking at what speed the wing is going. That's going at just about 30 hertz. That's all they're doing, right? Now, if you are an engineer, I like to think of systems as engineering systems like this. There is a system, there is some input, there is some output. What is the system doing to the input to transform it into the output, right? Now here is, what you see is the wing going at 30 hertz. That's inaudible. You can't hear that. 30 hertz, nobody in this room can hear. And what you hear on the other end is this really loud high frequency sound, which is, between 3 to 6 kilohertz. So now, obviously, there is some transformation going on. So what is the transformation? Where is it coming from? What is going on? And it's all mechanical. So now, if you look at sound production mechanism, you have a muscle which is driving the wings. That's called wing stridulation. That's what ecologists call it. And then you have underneath, right here, right here on the wing, there is a file underneath. And this file has a lot of teeth there, okay? A lot of teeth. Something like, anywhere from 100 to 80 to 200 teeth. And on the other wing, there is a plectrum which is plucking the teeth like this as it passes. And it moves each tooth up, okay? This pushes it up as it moves. So that's giving impulsive train or impulsive loading on that wing. Okay, so series of displacement impulses, and then there is this triangular region which is like a heart. This is much thinner than rest of the wing, and this is the resonator. So this resonates. This is set into motion at its resonance. So that's the amplifier. Okay, so that's what is amplifying the sound and giving you that huge output. So you have actuation, you have frequency multiplier, and you have resonator. These are the three basic elements of this entire mechanism. Beautiful. Now let's look at each one of them and see how it all comes together. Okay? So if you think in little bit of abstract terms, then you find that the mechanism with these three things, just these three subsystems, if you will, components, the whole thing is designed around these three, right? So the elegance of this design, you will appreciate very soon when I start showing you. So we started looking at the file first, just to look at what it was like. Look at this file. This is the scanning electron micrograph of this. First time I saw it, I was awestruck. At micro scale, the regularity, the beauty of the structure. In MEMS, it's even today, it's so hard to build something like this. It's three-dimensional, right? So, absolutely regular pattern at micro scale, built so well, over and over, millions of times, right? Because these are crickets have millions enough. And plectrum is just a hard tissue on the other wing. So both wings have teeth or file as well as the plectrum. So when it goes like this, it goes one sweep like this, one sweep like this. Sometimes crickets just go like that, sometimes they go like that. So they choose which one to use. And obviously they know that they should be using both just to reduce wear and tear. So now, if you look at file details, some details, see the insect length is a couple of centimeters, right? Heart area, just couple of tens of millimeters square. Thickness, 3 microns to about 10 microns, let's say. 3 to 10 microns. Very, very thin, right? Very, very thin structure. tooth pitch, tooth height, number of teeth, all of this. So when I say 40 to 250 or this range, what it means is for different species of crickets, it's bad, right? That's what this range is for. So this is how the plectrum goes and pushes, as the wing is moving, it is pushing the teeth up and giving impulsive loading, okay? So there is, there are people, Bernard Clark is one of the big names in this area. He had proposed that this is like a, clockwork mechanism that once it engages with one tooth, it pushes it up and then disengages and sets this free, then engages with the next one. So it's like with each tooth, there is quarter of sinusoidal side tone that is engaging, and the other quarter is, then sets it free. So you can look at this kind of catchment and escapement mechanism for loading. So if you look at that kind of loading, basically it's an impulsive loading of this kind. You can use a triangular wave or you can use a square wave for loading. Okay? So this is the resonating structure, and that's where the loading is. Moving impacts on resonating structure at 4 kilohertz. Okay? Now where does this come from? Remember that this is going at 30 hertz, and there are, let's say that 100 teeth here. So each tooth is stuck, right? So you multiply this one motion by 100, right? So this is 30 hertz, and these impulses are going, 100 of them in one sweep. So that's 100 times 30, that is 3000. So that's 3 kilohertz impulse train that is being applied, okay? Now let's look at modeling. This is what I was after. Why I wanted to do a complete model was because, see, ecologists know that this is how this thing works, but they have no way of knowing why a particular species has this particular frequency, or why they don't have a frequency of calling which is 20 kilohertz. Why not? Why is between 3 to 10 kilohertz? So when you are doing modeling, typically things like this are, you have a structure whose geometry, material properties are known, you know the boundary conditions, you know the loading, and then you find the response. This is pure-bred mechanical engineering or structural engineering kind of analysis. This is how it happens. Now, generally, engineering problems are like that, right? You have a square or circular or some really nice geometry that you work with. You know the boundary conditions very well, you know the load very well. But look at this structure, right? Now, if for everything you have a question. What is the Young's modulus of cricket weight? Right? What is Poisson's ratio? What is the boundary condition? Is it really fixed? Is it, clamped? Is it, free? Is it, what is it? And it doesn't fit any of the typical boundary conditions that you use in engineering. Right? Geometry, even the geometry is complex, right? It's not a simple geometry. So anyway, we said, okay, here is the harm. Let's take really good images, and after taking the image, you do some image analysis. You get the boundary points, okay, so that you have exactly the right geometry for its two-dimensional form. You model it in finite elements, use shell elements for this, but that's not all there is. There are these veins on it, and the veins are much thicker. So those are stiffeners on the vein, okay, that nature is using. So stiffeners, you have to then model those as well. Once you start doing all of this, your model of a tiny cricket wings, tiny part per hour, becomes so complicated all of a sudden that computer starts thinking for hours to give you one result. There's too many degrees of freedom, lot of number crunching. Then came material properties. That what is the Young's modulus? You need that. You have the geometry, you need material properties. So I asked my my student that what are you going to use for Young's modulus? He said, sir, everybody in the literature seems to think that cricket wing has Young's modulus of 50 GPa. I said, 50 GPa? Are you out of your mind? You know, it's a biological thing. It's a soft tissue. 70 GPa is Young's modulus of aluminum, right? 50 GPa is outrageous. Where did you find it? This is, sir, that's what everybody says. I said, find the source. Where is the source? Which is the fundamental paper that says 50. They found this paper, it's in German. And I had luckily a German intern in my lab at that point. I asked her to translate it. You won't believe what you find. You know, amazing. So nowadays nobody reads papers. You know, everybody just looks at other people's references and goes. So in the paper, in this paper, the gentleman says that, look, I asked my brother, who is a mechanical engineer, that what should be the Young's modulus of cricket wing? And my brother took a thread in the kitchen, and I gave him a cricket wing, and he hung it, and he did some torsional experiment, and he said that, oh, it's about 50 GPa. It's written in the paper. And that's what everybody is using. You know, unbelievable. I said, come on, I mean, you've got to be kidding. You know, so this is the story of 50 GPa Young's model. I said, let's measure it carefully. You know, it can't be this. So now we have, you know, many more sophisticated techniques. You can do nano indentation, which we did. We did on lots of species. You know, we used lots of species of cricket wings just to make sure that it's right. That average value is 6.4 GPa. That makes sense to me. You know, that's wonderful. So after all this stuff, we were confident that we have got the material properties right, geometry right. Loading, we didn't do too much of our own study. We took Bennett Clark's model of loading, and we ran our simulation with that loading. This is the response we found. And this is the response, this is in milliseconds, this is time response, displacement amplification. You know, it's a bit-like phenomenon. So you can see this is recorded. You know, this is from actual cricket. And that's from our simulation. So when my student showed me this, I was so impressed. And so was he. He was jumping up and down. This is so great, you know. We have got it. We have captured the essence of this call. Okay, cricket score. By the way, I mean, you know, I don't know how many of you know that crickets are singing not to annoy you. This is their love song. Okay, so the male crickets are singing for female crickets, you know, to attract them. And different species have different frequencies of calling so that there is no confusion. Now, so once I saw this response, you know, I'm walking home and I'm thinking that, wow, this is so good that we got it. And then I told my student that, hey, look, why don't you convert that displacement profile into an audio file? Okay? Just change it into voltage. That's all you have to do. And run it back through an audio decoder. Let's see what does it sound like. If it walks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, maybe it is a duck, right? So here, you know, we did this MATLAB conversion of this whole thing, and this, from the finite element simulation. Okay? So now it sounds just like a cricket, and we were absolutely overjoyed that, okay, we have got it, we have got it. So then we ran lots of things. We did FFTs on this to see, if it matches with FFT of recorded sound, which it did. I'll show you a little bit of that. But then now, obviously, if your model is working, the whole idea of modeling is that once you have a model working, you want to run lots of scenarios, right? That's predictive thing is what models do. So for that, we were running into this trouble of runtime on computers. It was very massive finite element model. So I said, let's reduce it. Let's take an equivalent wing, which is modeled without wings. Wings were creating lot of problems. So we know, I mean, we're good at modeling, so we know how to do that, how to match the modes of vibration, how to change the properties so that the modes are matched and the maximum displacement is matched. If you match that, then you have the right equivalent model, which we did. And with that, we simulated, this is for another species, and this is the recording from the field. So you can hear that it's there. If you look at the FFT, fast Fourier transform, your central frequency is bang on, and the tails, the distribution has a little bit of problem partly because you can't quite get absolutely bang on. There is no way, okay? The complexity of the structure is so much. But partly because the recording is from the field. We caught these crickets, we brought them to the lab, we put them in anechoic chambers, we cajoled them to sing, we tried every bit. Sometimes they will oblige, but most of the time they didn't like that idea. So, we couldn't quite get pure recording. So recordings from the field because it has reflections from the leaves and from the ground. So that also gets into your FFT. So there is some leaking there, but we worked on this from on various sort of different species, and we were very pleased that all essential things we are able to get. So now here are our friends. Let's say 9 different field crickets. Okay, 9 different field crickets. These are their calling frequencies. All right, we are looking at calling frequencies of these. So now you ask yourself this question: that how come every cricket has its own FM radio station, right? Potentiosis is going at 7.3 kilohertz, and somebody. So what is it? Although the resonator is the same, okay, it's the heart structure. What is the scaling that nature is using to impart these unique frequencies? And the frequencies are not just unique, but they have a distribution around them, intra-species variation. Because in winter, the frequency will vary a little bit. It also depends on humidity, temperature, outside conditions, right? So that spectrum is also given to them. So what is it that is going? Now, ecologists or biologists have tried to do this correlation, with everything that they could find. So this is the carrier frequency, mapped against area of the heart, pronotum width, file length, file tooth spacing, everything that they could measure, they did, right? But it doesn't correlate. So this is what I say, bio-inspired engineering, this is what I'm after. To figure out what is the scaling that nature is using, right? What is the basic design template? So, when you have something like what we have, a good model going, we used one of the cricket species which is the most popular around the world, abundant, let's say, around the world, Biomaculatus. We used it as normalizing cricket. We normalized everything with respect to that. And lateral dimension of the heart we took as one parameter and thickness as another parameter. We simulated the heck out of it. That, okay, let's see what frequencies do we get. And then we put the frequencies that are recorded from the field here. And it's all just bunched up here. It's not all over the place. Right? So when you look at these kinds of curves, if you are slightly mathematically inclined or trained, it's one parameter family of curves. That means you can put the two parameters together, get a scaling going, and if you do that, it's a straight line, with this scaling factor, bang on, it's there, right? All the species are there. So this is how you get to figure out what is the design rule, what is the scaling that nature is using. And when you look at the scaling itself, this is saying thickness divided by area. So when you look at this kind of scaling for frequency, you also know that although this whole harp is a membrane-like structure, very thin structure, this is not membrane scaling. This is plate scaling. So the wing is a plate. It has bending stiffness. It's not a membrane. Okay? So once you figure that out, that's $1 million discovery, because then you have nailed it. You know what's going on. So with that, we were able to look at, now we were confident that with the model being very good, being able to predict all of this stuff, let's look at why on this entire frequency range, possible frequency range, we could go from, let's say, 0 to, at least 20 kilohertz, maybe, audible range, so-called audible range. I don't think that we can hear more than 13, 14 kilohertz, even the young people here. But, we say that up to 20 kilohertz, the kids can hear, right? So up to there. But why this range is limited between 3 kilohertz to 7 kilohertz? Why aren't crickets singing at 12 kilohertz? Why not at 1 kilohertz? And these are the questions that my ecologist friend was interested in. That why has it evolved in this range? Right? So we started looking at these things. If you go high in this range, higher frequency, then either the harp has to be thicker to make it stiffer so that the frequency goes up, or it has to be smaller harp. If it is thicker harp, then it has larger mass. If it is smaller harp, then it has to have faster wing speed. Okay? In both cases, you need higher muscle strength, more energy for driving it. Okay? So given the volume of the crickets, it becomes unviable. Okay? You cannot do that. What about going back here, lower frequency? We find that in lower frequencies, if you go lower in frequency, your acoustic efficiency drops down by 2 orders of magnitude. Okay? So again, you are spending way too much energy for a little bit of result. Okay? So this is, or the other alternative is again bigger harp, thinner harp. Thinner harp, it's already 2 microns, 3 microns thick. If you make it thinner, any little thing can prick it and it's gone. So reliability loss and larger mass. If you have bigger heart, again the same problem with higher muscle strength. So that's the reason why it is where it is. So this is the ensemble that creates your cricket sound. You have the wing going, you have the plectrum and the teeth and the resonator. This is what is going on in this whole business. Actually, after we had all of this stuff, we studied several things. We studied robustness of design. What if a cricket is born with 1 or 2 missing teeth? Does the guy lose out in life? Can't have a mate. What if the spacing for some genetic defect is different? We did all those simulations, and what we found was that it was incredibly robust design. With all possible variations within 10%, the frequency difference was within the range of intra-species variation. Okay? That during temperature and weather, whatever variation you find, it all falls within that range. Amazing. Right? So that's what we learned from the cricket, and once we learned it, we said, okay, how can we make a MEMS speaker based on what we have learned? So, what we learned, all of you have seen speakers. You have seen speakers, going like this, right? The membrane, central membrane. And if you have looked behind, there is an electromagnet that pushes it, okay? That's what is forcing it. So the electromagnet is always in the middle. Why? Because membrane, you are trying to push the membrane, it's first mode of vibration. That's what you are trying to do. And central forcing is the best way of doing it. Crickets don't do that. You just saw that the teeth is on the side. It's not in the center. There's nothing in this. But it's a resonant structure. So tiny bit of energy, you infuse near resonance, it gets it going. So we learned that trick. We said, okay, why not have peripheral excitation for our speakers? So this is, the cross section you're looking at. This is the MEMS speaker. We have this part is what we are using here. This is what is for electrostatic actuation. So we apply voltage between this and this. Okay, there is an oxide in between, so this is insulated. So you apply electrostatic voltage, and that's what pulls it. So you are giving this square wave sort of loading on this, and it gets going. So and near resonance, if you force it, it produces sound. So this is the speaker that we make. This was the first one, and when my student showed me, he took me to laser background. He said, "Okay, this is already working. You hear the sound?" And I said, "No, I can't hear the sound." And he said, "I can hear the sound." And we had a big discussion that he's bluffing, and he said, "No, I can hear it, and some other students he brought, they could hear it." So the only conclusion was that hearing with age deteriorates. And therefore, but then I said that, however, the speakers are not meant only for college students. We have to make speakers that work. So we started working on, and we have now got speakers. So I'm just giving you a comparison. This is the field cricket singing in the field. Okay? This is your finite element cricket. Right? This is singing in the computer, obviously, right? With all the model that we have created. And then, this was the very first one after that attempt, that could sing or that could produce sound. This was that. After that, we have been working on this progressively for trying to replace the speakers that you use in mobile devices, and we have that speaker. So with that speaker, now what we're trying to do is, see, these are very, very thin. These are MEMS speakers, So that means you can make an array of them. You can put it on a picture frame. They are as thin as, even with everything included, backing and all, is this 1 mm thick. That's it. So it's going to be a picture frame speaker. You can have your picture printed on it, no problem, and it's a speaker. So it will be there. We are working exactly on that. If you hear from our speakers, this is bird sound from our speakers, okay? That we have fed and we have tried to get. So this is the sound coming from our speakers. It's getting good. We are getting there, but 8 years of work, just to get that very thin membrane and the etching, sideways etching to be perfect in 500 nanometer gap is what we have for the electrostatic actuation. And we are doing some nifty engineering there to trying to get it. But once we started getting the sounds, I've been very, very happy. They're very good. Yeah? So we are there, but not. These are very good. Bird sounds are good because bird sounds are mostly tonal. Okay? The frequency range is not very big. If you come to humans, then the frequency, or music, frequency range is huge. And we are still struggling to get that going. Just for the kicks of it. So, much before Yahoo was born, the advertisement was ready. So this is from 60s. There is a movie in India, and there is a song, famous song, sung by this guy, Muhammad Rafi, and this actor who was a crazy actor known for. So this is the song. Okay? This is the original soundtrack. I'm just going to show you how bad our speakers are doing on this right now. Okay? Yahoo, advertisement for Yahoo. Okay. Now, so I'm just trying to show you that you heard bird sounds, but on music and this wide spectrum, it's not very. But you can see that it's getting it. So there you go. So this is where we are right now, okay? We are improving bit by bit, and we are getting there, Just imagine that these screens that you have on the window, these are speakers, right? That's what we are working at. So this is a fantastic journey, learning from the crickets, how to make such loud sound. There are other crickets. So now I have got into the world of crickets, okay? And we have been looking at this particular cricket, which is a tree cricket. This is not a field cricket. These guys do duets, male and females. So the male will sing, and then the female is somewhere on the branch. So she then jumps on the branch. She makes a vibration. That vibration must go to the male. The male must acknowledge that vibration and sing again in response to that. Then only the female will do. Otherwise it will not. We recorded everything. We recorded the vibration levels. We used a piezo shaker to excite the branch and the sound. We did individually. That can we move the female just with the sound? No luck. Can we move her just with the vibration? No luck. When we play both, then only she moves. Right? So there are all kinds of clever mechanisms in nature to make sure that, see, this is the vibration they produce. Jumping on there. And it's such minute vibration, but it's on branches, and on branches, it's not 1 over r square decay, it's 1 over r. Actually, if the branch is very thin, then it doesn't decay at all. It just goes, it's only material decay, nothing, goes very far. Acoustic. If you look in nature, my God, you have got all these kinds of frequencies and filters built into these insects. You have low band pass filter, you have, band pass filter, you have high pass filter, all kinds of filters built into their ears. So now I'm looking at these ears, that what is the magic? What kind of microphones are built in so that these guys are able to, same tympanic membrane, but it seems to do magic. It has filters of all kinds that we don't know how to implement in real life. Okay, so right now this is the study that we have taken up, that how do these simple looking membranes. So again, I'm looking for a similar kind of scaling, similar kind of design template that we can learn from. Okay, I'll quickly give you another example. We are running out of time. I think, how much time, Amit?
So you have another 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So I'll give you quickly another example. You see, gyroscopes used to be, this is a toy gyroscope, but actually real gyroscopes which were used on aeroplanes or ships. Ships, of course, is a different, that gyroscope used to be as big as this room is, okay? But on aeroplanes, these gyroscopes, 20 kg gyroscopes with mechanical spinning wheel, that was then we came to MEMS gyroscopes, and we reduced it to very small gyroscopes. We thought, God, we are so smart, we can do this. And then nature has a completely different gyroscope. So I'm going to show you the contrast between these things. Okay? This is nature's gyroscope. This is from a fly. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. And it's all built on Coriolis effect. So this is a MEMS gyroscope with 2 proof masses, lots of suspender or elastic beams in it. You build it. This is optical. This is from my lab, SEM image of the built gyroscope. Completely packaged gyroscope. Small, different kinds, ring gyro or, dual mass gyro. Tiny, small ones. And we feel very good about it. This is a single axis gyroscope. That means it senses rotation only about a single axis. Okay? So you can put 3 of them on perpendicular directions, and then you have got 3. There are 3-axis gyroscope designs as well, 2-axis gyroscopes. But what got my goose was this. Now this is a fly. Look at this tiny white structure behind the wings, which is going up and down, out of phase with the wing. Okay? So that's called haltear, and that's the gyroscope of the fly. With that tiny structure, it gets all rates of rotation about all the 3 axes, roll, yaw, and pitch. And get that. Once you understand that, you say, I want to give up. I don't want to design anything anymore. Nature is just way too smart for us to, compete. Amazing structure. So this is what the structure looks like. This is a proof mass, it's a knob, and this is a cantilever structure. Incredibly complicated structure inside, looks so simple. At the end there are strain sensors which are called campaniform sensilla. That those are the sensors here that sense strain in the structure. This works on the same principle that our MEMS gyros are, Coriolis force. We did all measurements. See, it's just 1.2 millimeters. It's not very big, and it's the longest dimension is that, and 120 micron. And of course, the thickness of the tube itself is just a couple of 10 microns or so. So this is the wing, this is the haltear. It's offset from the wing axis by 30 degrees. It's in the back, it goes up and down like this in a plane. And as the fly rotates, if the fly is rotating, because of Coriolis force, this actuation gets a slight bit of vibration out of plane. And that out of plane vibration then produces strains here, which the fly records, decodes, and knows that whether the fly is rolling or in yaw motion or in pitching motion, which axis it is at. So we looked at these things pretty much in detail, did all kinds of experiments. This looks horrible, torturing this fly, but you have to pin it down and you have to do these experiments. Again, same things, material properties, geometry, boundary stiffness, these are all hard problems to attack. We did all of this, did experiments on stiffness, in plane stiffness, when it is going like this, what is the stiffness? When it has to go out like this, what is the stiffness? We measured all of these things and found what is the ratio between stiffness in the 2 directions and how does it get affected. This is a micro CT scan of that structure, and you can see that it's not a simple structure. And to make life complicated, there is fluid in here, okay, so that it can also adjust the mass while it rotates. This part is hollow, but it's a tubular structure. So with all that modeling done, we figured out that it is using the mechanics that we already know, Coriolis force mechanics, but the way it is detecting these 3 different rates of rotation is just superb. Just superb, that from these 2 wings, it gets the data and it takes the differential of the 2 wings, what it is getting. And it turns out that with the 2 wings, if you offset it at 0 degree, you can't get one axis completely. If it is offset from there, then you get differential reading from which you can make out about an axis. Okay? So the 3 axes, pitch, yaw, and roll, it turns out that at different angular positions, the maximum values are different for these 3 different rotations. Okay? For the left haltear and for the right haltear, the things are not exactly the same. For this one it is the same, for the other ones it is not the same, and by doing that combination, it So guess what there is? Demodulates. Okay? So demodulator at its best. So this kind of thing, the more I look into, the more awestruck you get that, gosh, how has this developed over centuries? So here is the design comparison for you, okay, between the two. MEMS diode is small amplitude motion, this is large amplitude motion. Fixed actuation direction, for MEMS diodes, varying actuation direction, single axis actuation, same actuation, multi-axis sensing, single frequency design, two axis. Amazing kind of thing. It does. Now, I get the last slide, sort of. Awe and inspiration. So here is one insect. It's called fairy fly. All of it is 200 microns, okay, in length. 200 microns, mind you. All sensors, all actuators, all processors, all packaged in 200 microns. And it flies. And it reproduces. It lays eggs in the eggs of other insects. Okay, it's a parasitoid. So it's so small that the eggs of other insects are inside the pores of leaves. Okay? The bigger insects. Inside pores of leaves. If you look at this hair-like structure, this is already at the limits of lithography that we know, Thomas. Okay? So this is there, and this is flexible, and it uses those hairs to poke inside the pores of leaves. Okay? And it is looking for eggs of other insects, that it is there. Is it there? So it finds that there is something hard, that means it's the egg. Then it has to sense the temperature. It has to be at the right temperature for it to lay egg inside. It is using infrastructure of somebody else, to propagate its own project. So that hair-like structure, which is so thin, and yet it has two sensors in it, temperature sensor and hardness. There are lots of other sensors as well, and actuators. So get that. That's where our engineering should head. Can we engineer things like that? It's still far from where we are. So thank you very much. That's all I have to share with you, and I'm happy.
Thank you. Very nice talk. In fact, so you were leading off towards the end about sensors, right? And so that is